Hi guys, I'm Katie, and we wanted to show you a cool feature of how you can invite your friends to watch online with you while you're watching the live stream. You can click on this plus button where it will pull up a list of your friends where you can invite them to join you in watching the live stream. You can do the same on your mobile device. So if you go to this share button here, you will be given a list of your friends where you can send them an invite to watch along with you while you're watching the live stream. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we hope you stay connected with us, and make sure to like our Facebook page so that you can get all of the updates on what's happening here at Family Church. Hi guys, I'm Katie, and we at Family Church wanted to show you guys how to give on our live stream website. At live.ourfamily.church, you will see the option to give online on the right-hand side of your screen. You will be taken to a safe environment where you can see that your connection is secure. There are two options when you go to give. You can give one time or set up a reoccurring gift. So that's it, but we really want to know how we can support you and your family during this time. So please let us know, and we'll continue to be praying for you guys.
Hey, welcome everyone. It's Wednesday. We always have some awesome guests with us, and I promise you, you're going to really enjoy this one. So first of all, do this, share this right now, because whatever platform you're on, it's going to be something, I bet you somebody who's watching right now is going to say, wow, that's really interesting. I want to join and be a part of that. It's just your way to sort of quietly evangelize your world through that. And then also, since it's Wednesday, we're always looking forward to Thursday, because Thursday is sign up to go to the services day. That starts at 2 p.m. We open up the reservations. We got to tell you, it's just so much fun to be able to see people coming back to churches, back into our preschool program, children's program, everything. So please sign up starting tomorrow. And then lastly, thank you for giving. We have many different opportunities we're trying to take advantage of with everything that's happening here right now. We're going through Church 101, 102. We're probably up to 102 by about now. And we're learning, and your giving is allowing us to be able to reach people in many different ways. So it's give.ourfamily.church. Well, with us today is Connie Albers. Connie is an author, podcaster. She has written a book that is Parenting Beyond the Rules. And it is a tremendous book. And I read it because I'll tell the story about how we know each other. But I read it and I'm going, well, you know, my kids are out of the house. They have kids now. I'm just going to read this book because Connie wrote it. And I'll just sort of leaf through it. But I found myself really engaged. And all throughout it, as I was reading, I was going, man, I wish I knew this when I was raising my kids and my teenagers. So I got to say, even the old dog was learning some new tricks. And so it is that beneficial. Well, we know each other. It's always a funny story to tell. We both had books that came out at the same time, Fish Sandwiches, Parenting Beyond the Rules. And they were the same publisher, which is even more weird. Mm-hmm. And they were coming out the same day. It was supposed to be April Fool's Day, but they changed it. And so the publisher called us and said, do you know this person? She lives right in Winter Garden. And I was like, I don't know her. Maybe I should meet her. And so we met and we talked and everything. And we just have that kinship now because we both had the book, same publisher, same time. But the end of the story is this. Your book was very successful. Mine, not so much. But yours was. And that's what I love. I love a first-time author finding something that was a niche and people just engaged with it. Mm-hmm. And after getting to know you, I can understand your personality and everything. You've just done a wonderful job of marketing all of this and getting it in front of people. Now, tell us about your family, first of all.
Well, as you know, I am a mother of 5. All 5 have now grown, and 3 are married, so that's fun. You know, it's just we started off our journey, not knowing what I was doing. You know, I'm just an ill-equipped woman, and now I have this baby, and then came another. So we had all 5 in 7 years. And it's interesting because I was constantly wondering, you know, what we're going to do, what are we going to do? And now I just have the unique perspective of being able to process all that I have learned and how we have learned it. And we just have, you know, amazing relationships with the kids. And as I think about all of it, I just stand and marvel because my kids knew better than anybody how imperfect of a mom I was. And often I would say, why am I writing this book? It should be like somebody else. And the Lord would just say, no, you. And so my kids all live local. We have this theme of doing life together, and that's what we do.
That's great. I remember when my kids were teenagers, becoming teenagers, and we really leaned on Dobson a lot and focused on the family and those books, and we'd read through all of those. But being a teenager has really evolved since those books. I'm just saying they're probably not as relevant. What I really loved about your book, it was more relevant for the parent today. Why is it that a parent today needs to have sort of a newer education on what it means to be a teenager?
Well, that's a great question, by the way.
Thank you.
You know, the thing is, teens are just little humans. They're just, they're children that are trying to become adults. Yes. And we compartment, you know, as Americans, mostly, we try to compartmentalize everything. Oh, you're in this year, you're in the middle school years, you're in the high school years. And the reality is, as a parent, which is why Parenting Beyond the Rules, we create the rules, the limits, the boundaries. We establish those.
Right.
And we apply those equally, systematically to all of our children, forgetting that our children are all different. They're all uniquely created with talents and gifts and strengths and personalities. And some of our children, you know, they're wanting to know who's the boss. And if you're not the boss, they'll show you who is the boss.
And that really hasn't changed at all.
No, it never changes.
No.
I think for what I have seen, because I've worked with parents and teens for about 25 years now, is they say the same things. They just have more challenges. So what led to this whole focusing on teens and why it's changed is it used to be, I'm the parent, do as I say. And it is no longer that way. We understand we're going for a relationship with our child, not just them completing a set of tasks or doing what we tell them to do when we tell them to do it. Not that obedience doesn't matter, because it clearly does. But how we approach them matters. We want to talk to our child in a way that they hear what we are saying, and not talking at them, but talking to them. And so we're more focused as a society on realizing we want to have relationships. Now, that doesn't mean we're buddy-buddy, because you still have to be the parent.
All right.
But it does mean that you have to listen with the intent to hear what they're saying. There's an art to listening, not listening to quickly fix the problem. Because, as a mom and dad, we can solve those teenage problems in 3 steps. Probably we did them, It's like, hey, if you do this, you'll probably spare yourself a lot of heartache.
Right.
The reality is that we can't do that. We are teaching our children to become problem solvers. And the only way they learn to solve problems is they have to know themselves. Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? They're never going to excel at their weaknesses. That's just not how God has made them to be. They will soar with their strengths. So we, as mom and dad, if we come along and we cultivate and we nurture that child and we help them discover, because it's an art of discovery, discovering what is unique about that child. Mm-hmm. How are they wired? And then we come along and we say, you know what? I noticed this about you. You might want to consider trying this.
Well, I had very authoritative parents that this was the way we're going to do it. And there was no, what do you think? In my house, really.
Yeah.
It was, this is what we're going to do. I don't know what your house was like, whether it was like that.
Mine was do whatever and just, I'll see you when I see you. It was very permissive.
Okay.
But I was also one of those strong-minded young women that even I kind of viewed what my mom said, because my parents divorced. I kind of viewed it as I was a suggestion, and I really didn't. If I felt like doing it, I would, and if not, oh well.
But then I read in the Bible, there's a lot of talk in Proverbs about the rod, and there's a lot of talk about you create these very firm boundaries and everything. So I see that one side of parenting, and I think we look at a lot of rioting teens in certain places. You think, if you had a more authoritative parent, you wouldn't be out here rioting and destroying property. But then again, we understand, you make it very clear in your book, why the relationship is so important. So how do you balance being the authority and having a relationship with your child? Well,
as your child grows from middle school to you turn the tassel and they leave the home, they are really desperately needing to have a voice. They want to be heard. Besides food and water and basic security, your children, your teens, want to feel heard and affirmed. And why do we see so much acting up and acting out? Because your teens don't get to choose anything. They don't choose the house, the bedroom, the zip code, the school. They don't get to choose what subjects or how they're going to study the subjects. They have very little choice, and they're desperately wanting to just be able to have what's going on inside of them to be able to come out and somebody understand. So when we are thinking about how we're parenting for the authority versus the authoritarian parent, the one is it's a checklist. It's a do this because I know best. There's no doubt mom and dad know best, but we are helping our children to become the person God has made them to be. And we want to guide them. And parents often say, or the society actually says, hey, when your kids hit the teen years, let them go, do it their own thing. And their peers are more influential, their teachers are more influential. And the reality is, all research is showing that parents in the teen years are the primary influence unless we give it away. And we can abdicate it. But if we remember that we're starting from a place of a relationship, the rules we make, the limits we place, the boundaries we set, we can adjust them. So as our children start to grow and change, parents are wise to adjust.
Mm-hmm. This generation is also different. I think about growing up, and I know I'm much older than you, but I think about it, how many ways that I have to express myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very expressive, the 70s, that I was living through. You didn't have all these ways to sort of express and connect with friends. In fact, I had a friend who was down the street. We used to do Morse code. That was our texting.
And now we'd be under the sheets at night going like this.
That was it. We would just do Morse code. Yeah. And that was the way we expressed ourselves. It was very limited. But now you have a generation that's very expressive. And I think we can't discount that. We just can't go, I don't have to have a relationship with you. Well, they can have a relationship with 100 other people.
Yeah.
You know, when they leave your presence through Twitter, through TikTok, through whatever it might be.
Yes.
So you have to become a primary relationship, the best relationship, really, so that they hear your voice amongst everything else. That's the new change in this generation today.
But you know what? You have been teaching and training your child since they were born. They absolutely already know everything you think, believe, the value system you have, how you would make a decision. I mean, most of you know, if I said to you right now, you would say, and I say, if you did this, what would your mom say? Or what would your dad say? You know, you could probably tell me immediately, oh, they'd say that. They know exactly. You have to remember, we've been teaching these kids. They can't get us out of their head. Sometimes they wish they could, but they can't get us out of their head. Mm-hmm. And there is this time of transition that is so needed and necessary. And you have to remember, you've poured into them. As they start to grow, you've got to start releasing and allowing them more opportunities. And I know we had talked before about freedom versus, like freedom. When do you give freedom and when do you remove freedom? Freedom is earned when freedom is given when freedom is earned. And people have said, well, what does that actually mean? And the reality is your children want freedom. I remember my son, a lot of the stories in the book are like my mom fails. And, my children are all adults when I wrote the book. So they had to sit around the table when it was finished. And I had to say, hey, guys, I need to read you this story. And they're like, Mom, we lived it. We don't want to hear it. And the reality was, the first story I said, then they go, what are the other stories? Because I talked about my mom fails. Mm-hmm. And the thing about freedom is my oldest son used to keep saying, Mom, I just want some freedom. I'm like, well, when you earn it. And it really got me thinking, what does that actually mean? It means that with freedom comes responsibility.
Right.
So if you manage the responsibility that I gave you with that freedom, then I am able to give you more because I can trust you, because you are good for your word, you manage time, if you say you're going to go someplace, you're actually there. I don't have to do you on Find Friends or something. And if I give you this freedom, and you mismanage it. Maybe it's a poor decision. Maybe you were influenced by, some others that you were around in a way that wasn't okay. That means, sweetie, I just have to tell you, I want to give you this freedom. I want you to be able to do this. It's important for you to learn to do this. However, we just need to step back and we need to decide that until you're able to handle this and make wise decisions or handle yourself properly, then we're not going to be able to do that for a while. So we're not going to do that for now. You come to us and let us know when you think you could handle what we require of you, because we are the Albers family, and this is how we do life.
It seems like you're kind of teaching them about your relationship with God through all of it too. That you show your trust in God, and He gives you more opportunities. And because if you do well with very little, He blesses you with much, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that same sort of thing that we're trying to teach our kids about a relationship with us, but really in the long run, we're teaching about the relationship with God.
Absolutely, because we want our children to grow up and not turn the tassel and say, thanks for all those values you've taught me. Thanks for taking me to church, but I'm done. That's not what we want. No. We want our children to want to walk with the Lord when they're not being made or forced to have a devotion or go to church. And we also want our children to want to come around us when they don't have to. Call us and say, hey, Mom and Dad, what are you doing Friday night? Like my phone is constantly, Mom, what are you doing today? Or Mom and Dad, can we come hang over tonight? Last night, recently, my daughter and her son were texting, hey, can we come over? And I'm like, we're tired. We've got to go to bed. I mean, you've got to cast a vision, Troy, for your family. And you have to cast a vision for your child. What they are designed on purpose, for a purpose.
When did you make that vision? How early?
Early,
in their age?
Very early. I wanted them to know that this isn't just like 18 and you're out of the house. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't leave at 18, but just we wanted them early to start seeing, God has given you Dad and I to raise you, to teach and train you in the way you should go. So our responsibility was find out how was God, God's the architect, what were the blueprints for that child's life? Because your child is a masterpiece. And we start just planting a seed. You know, when you get this way, when you get older, you might start experiencing these emotions or feelings. You might just start to feel frustrated, or you might want more freedom. And you just start talking about that. And you start talking about doing life with their siblings. And, you know, the world is hard. It's dangerous. But this is a safe place.
Yeah.
This is a place where you can stumble and fall, and we're all going to get back up, and we're going to walk through this together. It's really a beautiful picture of God created the family. He created the family to do life together. Mm-hmm. There are so many things in society, the world, jobs, extended family, hardened relationships, unforgiveness, that can pull us apart. So the parent has to be very diligent in fostering and nurturing the relationships, not just with them and their one
Can't expect his child to do that.
But
that's the parent's job.
Yeah. And we teach them how to resolve conflict. And it starts with going back to what I said. It teaches them we have to listen to learn. Yeah. What are they struggling with? Teenagers have a secret, private world. And if they can trust you, they will let you in.
Wow. A lot of mistakes I see with parents is they try to be the friends with their kids. And that gets very dangerous, doesn't it?
It's a fine line. Yeah.
I mean, you almost that you want to sort of be appreciated by them and their friends, but they really need to take this position here without sort of being the scary, I can't go to that person.
That authoritative parent.
Authoritative sort of parent. Yeah. But you still want to build that relationship where you could say you're my friend. I mean, when people say, God's my friend, I'm like, yeah, okay, but he's really much more than that.
Yeah.
If you just think he's your buddy that you hang out with, he certainly has those qualities.
Yeah.
But he is your king, and he is your God at the same time. And it's that dual sort of relationship. It's very difficult to manage that you have to have with your parent, between the parent and the child. And this book, I think, offers a lot of really good sort of ways to do that. Making sure who their friends are, checking out you got to be involved in their technology and everything. And I know since you wrote this, 10 more technologies have come out, right?
I know,
so you're
right?
going to have the revised and expanded one.
I know, right.
So,
and we see what's happening in our culture. The uprisings and the acting up and the acting out, and what's right is wrong and what's wrong is right, and you're never really quite sure who's going to be canceled at what moment for what action. And the social media has become a tool which we weaponize other people from, as well as all the millions of anonymous apps. I mean, it used to be you did stuff to people in the anonymous apps. Now we're just flat out doing it, and the mainstream normal ones. So, but yeah,
it's much different.
But being a friend is important.
Yeah.
To your child. However, when the rubber meets the road, you have to be the parent, because God, you will answer. And I've told my children this many times. I want to formulate this the right way. It's kind of like, don't do anything today that you're going to have to lie about tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
We could all benefit from that one. But I would have to also tell my children, I'm going to give an account. And this is pretty heavy and it's deep. I'm going to give an account for everything I say and do as I teach and train you. Because see, God has given me the responsibility of raising you. I'm not responsible. I'm not going to answer to the Lord for your, foolish decisions. I'm going to answer for mine.
Yeah.
And right now, if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but here's what you have to do. This is what you do. I ask the Lord. I go before the Lord. If what you want, or Dad and I aren't in agreement with, you pray and you ask the Lord to change our heart. See, that makes them look up and not out at their friends. Mm-hmm. And then say, and I will tell them, and I am going to be asking the Lord that if I'm not seeing what you're saying, if I'm not hearing it, to give me ears to hear. And the things that mattered most, they would see us come to them and say, you know what, we've had a change of mind. It doesn't mean you're wishy-washy. It just shows that our God is a living, active God, and our family unit is an organism that grows and changes, and we are not as static dull. We're active and alive, and these relationships are growing and flourishing.
Yeah.
And what better way to have them seek the Lord and trust Him by seeing Him move in the hearts of your parents, and vice versa.
And I think that's important that you're saying, I'm the authority, but I'm under authority also.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they realize really what it means to be in charge is a responsibility, but that you're always under somebody. And as a Christian, you're saying, I'm under God's authority, and I have to answer to Him. So I think it's a really good point. You know, your book, I remember coming up with the subtitle of my book, and I kind of let the publisher take that one. So I'm curious about yours, because the book is Parenting Beyond the Rules. And then very specifically, raising teens. So we know what this is aimed at. We know it's not the easy age. But then you say raising teens, and nobody would put these two words together with raising teens. Confidence and joy. Because that's about the last thing a lot of times when you're with a teen. You're like, I never know what I'm doing here. And it's not a lot of fun, right? But you say with confidence, you give that subtitle. So the encouragement here is that can actually be a wonderful time instead of the dreaded time, which we've always sort of made it.
Yeah.
What do you say are just some of the keys? You've added relationship is very much key. What are some maybe sort of other things, day-to-day, quick fixes maybe to make that confident and joyful?
Starve the fear. The enemy comes in to seek and destroy, to destroy the relationships within the home, to create strife and division. So you can get afraid that I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, negative influence is tearing us apart. Starve the fear. And I think the chapter in the book is called Squash the Fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear. So where you lack wisdom and understanding, you ask it of the Lord and He will give it to you. The other thing is monitor your mouth. So much of what we say can negatively impact our children just by the tone of our voice or the words that we construct. You as a writer know those words have meaning. Mm-hmm. And I always say, let the words of your mouth land into a tender place of your teen's heart. Mm-hmm. See, they're being ripped apart. The other thing is you've got to understand their world. Their world right now is controlled. 240 characters can destroy their world. They can be ripped up anonymously. There's games and apps about rumors and what that does. And when I think about the keys is remembering you're shaping and forming a life that God has specifically, uniquely designed them to fill. They are a masterpiece. So you've got to paint pictures of possibilities. You've got to ask the Lord for wisdom and discernment. And by squashing the fear, you're able to listen to that whisper. And then when He says pivot, you're able to pivot with confidence.
Yeah. And then in addition, in 2020, you think about all that has happened now. You probably could write another book.
I know.
About how to parent through pandemic.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a great title.
Parenting pandemic?
Parenting through
I don't want
pandemic.
to we want 20, we want this to go.
Not for the next pandemic. No. But there are some parenting rules we probably could have learned, we have learned through the pandemic that we can apply that have been very positive. What would some of those be?
That your children are stronger than they know. They've never been tested like this before. They've never had their world totally flipped upside down.
I don't know if I've ever been tested
I mean,
like
you and
this.
I haven't either, but I mean, specifically when I'm talking about thinking about your child's world.
Right.
You know, everything from them, what was normal, has been turned on a dime.
Yeah.
You know, they can't get around friends,
No.
can't go to church. There's so many things that they now can't do. They can't play their sport. They can't have in-person gatherings and all this stuff, depending on where you live. But the reality is that your kids, when you stop to pause and think about where they are, you're able to identify where they are and bring them to the point of the next step. And just by showing them, sweetie, we don't have to have this all figured out. But God, I had two thoughts. Reminding your children that God said you are equipped to be brave. You're equipped to be strong. God has equipped them with courage. Tell your children that God has equipped them with that. Remind them that the opposite of bravery isn't cowardice, it's conformity. We don't want our children to conform to the world. We want them to be strong. We want them to be confident in speaking out, knowing that the joy of the Lord. And two, they are learning resiliency that will serve them well for the rest of their life. We are pivoting. We are pivoting we go to bed one day and we wake up the next morning and we find everything's changed again. And that's becoming the normal. But there is the beauty of that is resiliency was a lost art in middle of March.
Yeah, it was.
And it's not now.
Well, you think about that greatest generation that was back in the 30s and 40s. What we always appreciate them is how they adapted to terrible things that are happening around the world. And they're a great generation because of that, right? Because they had to adapt to tragedy. This could be.
I think this has the potential. We see that there are some that are creating changing culture. I mean, we do see change makers happening right now in the middle of this. May not be the change we want. So my charge to parents of college and teenagers and tweens is show them and give them examples of how they can be changing the world. They will. I believe they will be the overcomer generation or the resilient generation, because they are going to solve problems and change things in a way that we will not have thought possible, because everything has been kind of brought down to its basic level, and now we're rebuilding it all. How will we rebuild it? Paint that picture for their kids. That will make life-changing impacts in their life.
Definitely. And we only have a few minutes, but there's another thing that I always think about parents. They always wish they were like Connie, right? Or they always wish they were like, oh, that other mother. She's so good at this and that and this. And there's that comparison thing that goes on with parents. And that's never good, is it? What do you say to moms that are they get down on themselves because they really feel like, well, I wish I was more like that one, and the comparison sort of
God warns us against comparing ourselves to one another. I mean, that's a warning. How do we not compare? We realize that we're parenting the children God gave us, not the ones we wish He had. So you're seeing everybody's highlight reels on social media. You have to step back and realize it probably took 50 tries to get that child to fold that laundry that you're taking a picture of.
Right.
I would say limit your exposure to temptations that would cause you to stumble and start falling into comparing yourself.
Social media is
social media is huge. It definitely has it can have a. God says to rejoice with others. So when we see something good happening, rejoice with that moment, that time, that good job, mom moment. Don't bring it to your camp. Say, well, why aren't you doing that? So when we talk about comparisons, Troy, we also don't want to compare our kids against other kids, because we really don't know what it's like when nobody's looking. So limit social media. Take hold of your thoughts. Remember, God says not to compare one another, and you're building your family, not someone else's.
Right. Well, you're building God's family.
Yeah.
And that's where you start. Start with that perspective. And I really like that you said set goals, because a lot of parents just feel like they're sort of winging it here. But I remember very early on, I said, I want to make sure that all my kids have a good work ethic, that they all going to a church and they're active, and that they all marry a Christian girl. And I had 3 boys. And, so far I'm seeing all those things. But they were conscious goals I made very early on. I remember at a Promise Keepers back in the late 80s or something. But that took effort, right? It doesn't happen naturally, does it? Yeah. You have to sort of focus every day and say, I want to make sure that goal is met. I'm not going to do it alone. I got to have my wife, my spouse with me through this. But together we can, and God, we can really make this happen. So don't rely on chance, right? You're going to have to do a little work, a little homework. I recommend this book as one of the ways to give you some really good ideas from somebody who's been through it. And you really communicate them very well here. So it's worth the effort, definitely, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That you get to reap the rewards now of your kids calling you. They're in their 20s.
Yeah.
Hey, can we come over?
When's Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah, I mean, that is a benefit of all the hard work and the day-to-day, I want to say grind. The confidence and joy is probably better. But the day-to-day attentiveness that I'm a parent to these children, and I'm going to grow them for God's glory.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but you have to remember they are the Lord's and they are stewarded to you.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. You're creating that rich relationship. Once you have that relationship, you have influence.
You
and
do.
even if your child is flailing and floundering and struggling,
Yeah.
that's just this chapter. That doesn't mean
Right.
that's the
Just a
direction of their
season.
life. Yes.
Move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me
A lot
on.
of great stuff here. And for those of you at home, if you're parenting teens right now, do not be discouraged. Seasons, and you have God on your side, and you have church, you have so many other things that can help you through all this. This book, Parenting Beyond the Rules, I just think it'd be very good for you to pick that up. You can get them online and order that and start to go through it. Let God speak to you about how unique you are and how blessed you are to be able to be a parent to a teenager right now. Thanks for joining us. Now go be the church.